Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is a special weekend video talking about an all-open spoiler discussion about Daredevil Season 3. Now, in case that wasn't completely obvious, this is going to be a fully open, spoiler-filled discussion. So, if you have not either watched Daredevil Season 3 yet, or if you have just not simply finished watching Daredevil Season 3 yet, then you might want to just add this video to your favorites list and come back and watch it later, because we are going to get into a whole lot of spoilery kind of stuff. So you have been warned. All right, I've been a little late to the boat on watching Daredevil Season 3, but I finally got around to watching it. I binged it in 2 days. I got it all cleared off my plate because I wanted to do a spoiler discussion this weekend. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you guys about my thoughts. I'm going to let you know what I thought about Daredevil Season 3, some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses, and then we're going to throw it open to you guys. You guys can simply use the super chat function, send in a question, and we will get around to your thought. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be an observation. Just do me a favor, guys. Any commentary or questions, completely limit it to Daredevil questions. Please don't ask me about Star Wars or the MCU or about Mission Impossible or about anything like that. Just stick. Today we are talking about Daredevil, so try to keep all the comments to that. All right. So, what did I think about Daredevil Season 3? I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And you know, we needed this. Netflix Marvel shows needed this. Coming off of Defenders, which I liked. I liked Defenders, but, you know, it wasn't great, but it was pretty good. But a lot of people didn't care for it all that much. I haven't been a fan of any Jessica Jones, and Jessica Jones Season 2, even people who like Jessica Jones seem to think Jessica Jones Season 2 was a step down. You had Iron Fist Season 2, Luke Cage Season 2, yuck. You had all this stuff. We really needed them to hit it out of the park, and they did it with Daredevil Season 3. Now, everybody's first question is it the best season ever? Well, I don't know if it's the best season ever. I think I would have called it the best season ever if episode 10 didn't happen. If episode 10 didn't happen, which was the entire, the Karen flashback episode. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. If it wasn't for that episode, I might be tempted to call this the best season of Daredevil ever. I still might call it the best season of Daredevil ever, but I'm not really sure. What I do know is that it is at least on par with that high standard that we've come to expect from these Daredevil shows, and I think it delivered it. It gave us great action. Actually, the best fight choreography in any of the Marvel Netflix shows so far. I thought the fight choreography was even a step up from the other Daredevil seasons. I thought the fight choreography was fantastic. But they realized we're not just here to make a good comic book show. We're here to make a good show. So they have great drama, great plot twists, great characters, all that kind of stuff. And then, yes, once in a while, they throw in some great action scene. But they don't overly rely on big action scenes, and that's what I loved. I loved what they did with Matt. How coming out of that horrific situation, losing Elektra again, and all the kind of stuff that came along with it, he found himself in an extreme crisis of faith. And it's not like it's just solution to my crisis. No. It was up and down throughout the whole series. I love that they did that. Wilson Fisk is the best antagonist on television. Not just the best antagonist in the Marvel stuff. He is the best, now that Crowley isn't around on Supernatural. Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio is the best antagonist on television. And he did not disappoint. He was so good. And because, they mix in with Kingpin this element that I love about my movie and television villains. He is, besides being brilliant and menacing and terrifying and evil, in his own twisted way, he still sees himself as the hero. He sees himself as the hero of his story. And the way they are able to take all those elements, not either or, but both and meld them into this incredibly best antagonist on television character is fantastic. Played, of course, by Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio deserves a Best Supporting Actor Emmy nomination for Daredevil Season 3. I mean, there's a lot of television to come, but oh my God, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that Vincent D'Onofrio doesn't deserve a Best Supporting Actor nomination for season 3. On top of it, but all the performances were great. I can't think of any performance or performer in this series that I go, that one was kind of a loose, of a weak link. Nah, they were all great. They were wonderful. And okay, let's talk about Dex for a second. You can't just come back to Daredevil and just do Kingpin again. You can't just do that. You got to throw in some other element. Throwing in the Poindexter, Dex, storyline, the Bullseye thing, throwing him in there was wonderful. That could have very easily been a very cheesy character, but it wasn't. Instead, it was just as strong as all the other characters, just as strong as we've come to expect from these Daredevil characters. He was freaking fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And again, not a one-dimensional villain. There are moments in this season that your heart really feels for Dex. That you feel sorry. There's moments in this season that Dex actually acts a little bit heroically. And I'm not just talking about the beginning when he saves Ray and Kingpin and takes out all the Armenian mobsters of the city. I'm not talking about that, although that was kind of heroic, but I'm not even talking about that. The very fact that he was a character who was not just, screw it, I'm just going to be evil. No, he was trying to find that moral North Star. And yes, he was going about it the wrong way, stalking. Well, I can't remember the girl's name. You know what? For argument's sake, let's just say the name of the girl was Jill. I think it might have been Jill, but I might not be. But the girl he worked with at the suicide prevention hotline, right? His whole purpose for that was trying to find a moral North Star. He didn't want to be the dick. He didn't want to just give up and give in to all of his base natures. There are moments in the season he tried. He tried. To me, and that one scene where he goes jogging after he's already revealed himself to Jill in the restaurant, she runs at him, then he tracks her down, jogs by her in an open public place. To me, that was heroic. Because it was a dude taking responsibility for himself and trying to improve himself, and he's willing to go out and take a risk to try to beg somebody to help him find his moral path. And it was that element that adds almost a Shakespearean style of tragedy to this incredibly dread-filled villain in Dex. And I love that they didn't take the easy path out that, nah, he's just some psychopath. Show me somebody to kill. Show me somebody to kill. They didn't make him that. They added layers and dimension to him, made him sympathetic at sometimes, a little bit heroic at other times, and ultimately Dex's story was a tragedy. And you know what my biggest jaw-dropping moment of the season wasn't the mom reveal, it was when Kingpin took out Jill. It was done so quickly and so heartlessly and with such, not even a second thought. Oh, hey, you guys, did the landlord let you in? Bang, she's gone. She's dead. She's out of the show. And that was the only time. There was a lot of great moments in the season, but that was a season I had to grab my remote and hit pause and go, what the hell just happened? And it was such a Fisk thing to do. Without a second thought, no empathy. That's a human being. Nah, well, but she's in my way, so kill her, take her life. Bang, gone. Holy crap. And the fact that then came back to bite him in the ass later. And by the way, I'm only going to talk for another minute or two here, and then I want to get to your guys' live comments and questions that you guys are sending in. By the way they brought that whole thing back later, Daredevil finds out from the Englishman that, what Fisk did to take out Jill so he could become Dex's moral North Star, and that comes back to bite him in the ass. And then you had this amazing three-way fight. Daredevil versus Dex versus Kingpin versus Daredevil. Unbelievable fight. And you know what? There was something, I talked to one friend of mine on Twitter who's like, yeah, but Daredevil should have taken Dex out. You know what? Daredevil was consistently getting his ass handed to him by Dex. And I still don't think at any time in this season was Daredevil. Matt was never back to 100%. I don't think there was any point in this season when Matt was truly back to 100%. Whether it's just recovering from the trauma of the building collapse or throughout his stab wounds and whatever, I just don't believe there was ever a time in this season that he was at 100%. And that being the case, him constantly getting beat by Dex, I thought was really refreshing. And I thought there was something really poetic that at the end, it's Fisk that takes out Dex. Oh, what a shot. Very Bane breaking Batman's back kind of scene when he picks him up and rams him into the corner of that wall. Cracking, snap, crackle, pop. What a scene. And just the fight goes on, and it was a fantastic fight. It was a great finale. I loved it. I love Foggy this season. I thought he was great. I love that Foggy and Karen aren't just the bystanders, because a lot of these shows and movies and everything, they make the loyal friends just kind of bystanders whose role it is to be the witness to the hero. They are the witnesses of the greatness of the hero. But they didn't take that route. Karen and Foggy were heroes in their own right. They pushed the narrative themselves, aside from Daredevil, aside from Matt. And I really like the way they used them too. And I'm actually a big fan of Foggy. I've been a fan of Foggy ever since season 1. And that really nice little touch, Nelson Murdoch and Paige. I like that. That was really nice. Anyway, let me talk about my one gripe with season 3. And honestly, this is it. I've got nothing to complain about for season 3 except this one thing. And that is episode 10. Or as I call it, slamming on the brakes episode. Because going into the ending of episode 9, Daredevil season 3 had been building this frenetic pace, and it was building to this crescendo and just building and building and building, momentum, and then all of a sudden, referee blows the whistle. Time out. We'll return to this story in just a little while. We're going to take out some time to tell a completely useless, meaningless Karen background story for like 35 minutes. What a bloody waste. What a bloody waste. That was completely unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. That stuff, that whole 35-minute flashback thing served the story absolutely zero. It didn't serve the story at all. Nothing. And you could say, but John, it was character development. Nah, it's not character development. A flashback isn't character development. Character development is taking a character you've introduced me to and then showing me their journey and let me walk with them during their journey as they evolve and change throughout the adventure. Going back a bunch of years is not character development. And by the way, you could have communicated the entire point of that 35-minute takeaway from the actual story of the show. You could have told that whole thing in a 5-minute flashback. You could have told that whole thing in a 5-minute flashback. And I wish I could remember who, but somebody put up on Twitter a link to how you could have done that episode better. And they scripted it out. And it was in 4 to 5 minutes, you could have accomplished everything they did in 5 minutes or less and then gotten back to the story. And what really pissed me off as somebody who was binging it, right, was you just felt through every episode, it's building and it's building and it's building and it's momentum, and we're getting ready because we're getting into episode 10. It's only 13 episodes. We're building that crescendo and let's stop everything. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here for a minute. We're going to completely pull you out of the story here. We're going to completely pull you out of it. Why? Oh, so we can go back and talk about something that happened to Karen once. Is this something that is materially going to play in the ongoing story? Nah. Then why the fuck are we going to do that? I don't know. Might give you a little bit of a better appreciation for Karen. I don't care about that right now. That's something you should have done in season 1. This little flashback to help us understand Karen, that's something you should have done in season 1. Not here. Not when we're approaching the crescendo of the show. I hated it. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And look, notice that I'm not saying that episode 10 was badly executed. No, it was actually pretty good. It is actually pretty good. But it was unnecessary, it was misplaced, and all it did was completely become disruptive to the viewing experience, at least to me. That's a little something. If you want to do some character development, you do that in season 1. Here's a great example. They did some flashback stuff with Dex as well, but they gave it to us in Dex's first season. They gave it to us as we were just getting to understand who this Dex guy was. If you'd given us that little episode about Karen in season 1, it would have made much more sense. At this point, it was pointless, useless, and was nothing but disruptive to the viewing experience. But that's it. That's all I got as far as complaints about Daredevil season 3. A little over half of one episode. That's it. I got nothing else. You know me, I like to try to balance things out and talk about the things I like and mention, even in shows and movies I love, I try to talk about all the negatives. I got nothing else. That's it. A poor decision to take up 35 minutes of screen time over a segment that maybe should have happened in season 1 and didn't have any place here in this season. That's it. Everything else was just firing on all cylinders. And I loved this season of Daredevil. I'm not ready to call it the best season of Daredevil yet. I'm not ready to do that. Maybe I will after a while. And I probably would without much hesitation if it wasn't for episode 10. But seriously, slam dunk. Absolutely slam dunk. This episode, this season of Daredevil. Fantastic. And it just left me wanting more. So that's all. Those are my thoughts, guys, on this whole thing. Now let's go over and hear what you guys have to say. Your thoughts, your observations, your questions about Daredevil season 3. So let's dive into it here. So our first question is from Patrick Conway, who writes, Vanessa has to be the next big bad working with Fisk. I disagree. I've seen some other people say that online, and honestly, I don't agree. To me, that's a little linear to me. It's time to throw in a new element. It's time to change it up. We've had 3 seasons of Daredevil now. Even though Fisk didn't have a lot of screen time in season 2, he's still a central figure in season 2, right? We've now had 3 seasons where Fisk is either the central figure or a central figure in all 3. It's time to move away from that. And the problem with Vanessa is that Vanessa doesn't pose any physical threat. Like, you can't have a physical confrontation. Fisk and Matt in season 1 could have a physical confrontation. Punisher and Matt could have multiple physical confrontations amongst other people. Season 3, Fisk, Matt, and Dex. There's all that. Vanessa doesn't offer you that. Now, not that everything has to have a villain that also offers a physical threat, but it's a little bit easier and it's a little bit more entertaining. And for an audience, it's a little bit more satisfying when they can do that. Having Matt and Kingpin matching wits throughout the entire thing, having them physically face off is a very satisfying experience for the audience. So on top of, we've been centered on Kingpin the whole time. We've done 3 seasons. There's no physical threat there for that payoff at the end. I think it's time for them to throw a curveball into Daredevil. So I'm going to disagree. I don't think Vanessa should be the big bad in season 3. Alt Productions writes, I wish the MCU would reference Daredevil. They mentioned comic Easter eggs, and the audience has no idea about. I'm sure more people know about Daredevil than Adam Warlock. I never want the MCU to reference Daredevil. I never want them to do that. To me, you got to keep these things separate. You got to keep the MCU movie universe and the Netflix universe separate. That's my opinion. I've always felt that. I've never wavered from that. I think the whole reason Daredevil can be great is because it's not really tied at all to the MCU. You know? Nobody has to wait around and say, well, why didn't Captain America come and help him? Why didn't Falcon come and do something? Because they're not really in the same universe. And they say they are in lip service, but in practicality's sake, the MCU and the Netflix universe are not connected, right? No, in no practical, real way. So I prefer that, and I think it would all just go to hell if they try to mix them. So I'm very glad they don't. That's my personal. I'm just glad they don't do that. I don't ever want them to do that. Leave Daredevil with his hands untied. leave Daredevil, because all you're doing is tying their hands creatively if you now say that the television universe has to follow by the rules of what's ever going on in the movie universe. That just ties their hands creatively. I think part of the reason Daredevil has been able to be so great is because they have no such ties. So I want them to keep it that way. That's my opinion at any rate. All Productions writes, final season, Vanessa dies, Fisk has nothing to lose. I mean, that's possible. You could do that with a season 4 or season 5. I think a season 4, if we get a season 4, has to move away from Fisk. I think we need a Fisk-less season. I think Matt needs new challenges, a new archenemy. It's time to move away from Fisk. But that doesn't mean you can't bring him back at some point. There's a reason they had him go to jail and not die, so you can go back to him and use him again. I just don't think they should do it their next season. Dakota Barber writes, the acting done by Charlie and Vincent in the last episode was Emmy-worthy. The way he yells, "I beat you," was emotional. And also, that fight between Matt Dex and Fisk was rad. It was fantastic. It was that final fight was fantastic. And I can't disagree with you about the acting of Vincent and Charlie Cox in that final episode. Well, I mean, throughout the entire season. This was probably Charlie Cox's best performance this season. He's grown in the role. And I don't know that he's ever been better as Daredevil than he was this season. And again, to me, Vincent D'Onofrio absolutely deserves an Academy Award nomination, no doubt. And again, that final fight was spectacular. And you know, it had all the hallmarks of being a letdown, because we've been waiting all season for this, right? It could have easily been a big letdown, but it didn't. It was truly the crescendo of the season. It topped it off wonderfully. It was very satisfying. It was very visceral. I dug it. I dug it a lot. So yeah, I'm completely on board with you, Dakota. All right. Sharon Aurora writes, I felt so bad for Dex, but he was also so fucking awesome. He was awesome. But, you know, but it's not either or, Sharon. It's not that I felt bad for him, but he was also awesome. No, I felt bad for him, and that's kind of what made him awesome. One has something directly to do with the other. One of the things that made this character so great, in my opinion, was the fact that you felt bad for him. You felt empathy for him. At some moments, you're cheering for him because he's legitimately trying. He's trying at moments. And then ultimately, he gives up hope and goes, you know what? Thanks to Mr. Fisk now, I feel like I'm more myself than I've ever been. I mean, that's tragic. It's tragic that a guy who did try so hard and wanted to be good ended up in that place. It was seriously Shakespearean level tragedy. And it's heartbreaking. And that scene before he kills Ray, and him and Ray are talking in the backyard, and Ray's trying to say, look, Fisk has played you, blah, blah, blah. And when Dex gives him that speech, thanks to Mr. Fisk, I've never felt more like myself. To me, if I was going to shed a tear, and I didn't, but if I was going to shed a tear at any point in season 3 of Daredevil, that would have been the time I shed a tear. That to me was the most tragic moment of season 3. That moment that this guy, this broken individual, who at times tried so hard to overcome his own demons and tried to overcome his base broken nature and tried to find a moral North Star and tried to be good. To me, the biggest tragedy of season 3 of Daredevil was that moment in that backyard when he finally just gave up to it. He said, "Now I'm done trying. I'm done." That to me was the tragedy. Which also led to this incredible moment when he goes after both Daredevil and Fisk at the end. It was great. It was wonderful. Sam Fisher writes, I love this season. I'm so happy they were able to do Born Again in such a way that it fit perfectly into the show because it is steeped in Daredevil lore. Yes, but you know what? You can certainly see the influences and the elements of Born Again in season 3, but I would argue that this season is not Born Again. I mean, it's undoubted. You can see the influence and you can see the elements of Born Again in it. But there are also elements and influences from other classic Daredevil stories as well. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I would argue that this is not Daredevil Season 3, Born Again. No, I wouldn't say that. You could see the influences, you could see the elements that are in there, but I think there are also some direct influences and elements from other classic stories as well. But still, they use them beautifully. Sam Fisher follows it up with Sister Maggie. Oh, yeah, I didn't even talk about Sister Maggie. Love that character. Is my favorite Daredevil character because she's Matt's mom. Matt is an Orthodox Catholic who dresses in a devil suit and lives in a place named Hell. Of course, his mom is a nun. I will be honest with you. When they first did the reveal to the audience, I don't mean to Matt, but when they first did the reveal to us as the audience that Maggie is Matt's mom, my first reaction was not good. My first reaction was, come on. Really? I am your father. How many times do I have to see in movies and TV shows, I'm actually your mom. I'm actually your sister. I'm actually your dad. Like, it didn't hit me well. I'll be honest. It did not hit me well. As the show and the season progressed, it added to the show. It did. Having that reveal, having her be his mom, added to the show. I was not big on when they revealed it. I thought it was kind of cheesy. It's like, really? Can we be more stereotypical? But as it progressed, that narrative decision to me did add to the show. It did benefit the show in the long run. So at one point, that would have been one of my negatives about this season. But because I finished it out, it was like, okay, by the end of the day, it ended up being a strength. So I let that one go. But she was a great character. I actually think I liked her character a little bit more before finding out she was Matt's mom. Because then to me, she's just a good-hearted, hard-ass nun. And I love that. Then you find out, she's actually his mom and there's an ulterior motive for her. Whatever. But still, at the end of the day, it was a good decision. But I do love the character. I also love the character, Sam. All right. I'm Upset writes, will we see Elektra again? I have no doubt. I have no doubt we will see Elektra again. I was fully expecting a cameo in the final episode. Like, after everything was said and done and Fisk had been arrested again, blah, 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 I was kind of expecting a scene of Matt standing on a rooftop just looking over the city, and they're hearing a voice from behind me going, hello, Matthew. You know the way she says Matthew? Hello, Matthew. And him turning, you never showing her, but him turning around with a stunned look on his face. And then you just go to black. I was kind of half expecting them to do that. I have zero doubt we are going to see Elektra again. Neither of them died in that building crash. She'll be back. Sebastian Gomez writes, that 11-minute hallway scene was absolutely amazing. There were several scenes that were crazy. The whole bulletin fight sequence, not just during Matt and Dex fighting, but as Matt is trying to leave the building and he's fighting his way through a bunch of FBI agents. That was incredible. The fight in the prison was absolutely incredible. There's 3 or 4 really strong, powerful sequences that you could point to. I mean, they was just done with such excellence. Like I said off the top of the show, I really feel like their choreography this season was their strongest. I really think they've just gotten better and better with it. Patrick Conway writes, great season. Bullseye was badass. Fisk was the king. Karen and Foggy were awesome. Foggy willing to take on Dex. That Karen and Fisk scene was intense. Oh my God, that Karen and Fisk scene was amazing. That was amazing. That was so great. That was played so great, obviously by Vincent D'Onofrio, but probably, I cannot remember the name of the girl who plays Karen. Let me pull this up here, see if I can find her. Karen Page is played by Deborah Ann Wool. I tell you what, that was her best moment in all 3 seasons of Daredevil, I think. That season, I'm not talking about the character, I'm talking about the actress. When she goes in there playing off Vincent D'Onofrio that way, forget about it. It was fantastic. Her, to me, no doubt, her true shining moment in all of Daredevil, either seasons 1, 2, or 3, or Punisher, or whatever. I thought she was spectacular. And Vincent, it goes without saying that he was great in that scene, but you're right. That scene was incredible. This entire season is filled with candidates for best scene of the season. Like, I felt like every episode had like 2 scenes in it that could have legitimately been called the best scene of the entire season. Like, it was just played so well, and that scene was absolutely no exception. I love that scene. I'm really glad you brought that up, Patrick. All right, here. Easy Target writes, my jaw dropped when the head of the FBI shot the dude in the kitchen. Oh, no kidding. I was expecting the boss dude to be the mole, not the woman. I was not expecting her to be it. That did catch me off guard. That totally caught me off guard. I was not ready for that. That was crazy. Now, whenever you've got somebody in a movie or TV show that's about to reveal something big, you expect something bad is going to happen. But that wasn't the bad thing I was expecting to happen. I was expecting some kind of, I don't know, thugs break into the house or whatever, but they did a good job. They caught me off guard with that as well, Easy Target. It was a really, really good moment. Big Four, Dam, and Alfie Gamer writes, hey, Gio, hope all is well. All is very well, thank you. The moment Matt and Dex square off in the Bolton, who are you? I'm Daredevil. Matt is stunned. Chills, man, chill. Great moment. Great moment. And by the way, he looked incredible in that. Wilson Bethel, who's the name of the actor who played Dex, he looked great in the suit. I mean, it really did look like Daredevil, right? You would have thought it was Daredevil. You really would have. But Matt, yeah, that fight was great. And it played out appropriately. They were very easily matched. When they were in close combat, Matt always had the upper hand. Did you notice that? When you watch the show, whenever Matt and Dex fight, when they're in close combat, Matt usually has the upper hand. Dex will get in some shots, but Matt has the upper hand. But it's like an MMA fight. You know, fighting in close, but when you can keep their distance. When Dex was able to keep the distance, he had the clear advantage and the clear upper hand because he could just peck away at Matt from a distance. Little thing off the head here, little stab thing in the leg there, blah, blah, and that up. So then they come back into close hand-to-hand combat again. And while Matt's got the advantage there, he's already damaged, right? They played that well. They played that consistently. They gave a character to the fight dynamic between the two guys, and then they stayed consistent with that character. It was beautifully done and wonderfully executed. And yeah, that scene was great. Let's see. Where are we going next here? We're going back to Patrick Conway, who writes, Vanessa orders Dex's surgery, becomes the queen of crime in New York, and works to get Fisk out. Matt will have his hands tied with his deal. Elektra will return. Again, I don't think so. You just did an entire season about Kingpin getting out of prison and return. You're going to do that again right in the next season? I just don't think that's the way you're going to go. I don't think that's the way they're going to go. And to me, again, I think it's too linear in our thinking. I just think it's too linear. We need to break out of that a little bit, I think. So I think Matt needs new challenges. I think he needs a fresh new antagonist, a new story. It's just time to move on from Kingpin, at least for a little while. Move on from him for season 4, maybe bring him back in season 5. But I think it's time to move on from Fisk at least a little bit. Let's see. Javier Riaz 405 writes, do you think this will be the last season? I don't. Like, I know there are some stories going around. Look, one site out there claims that they were exclusively told by somebody that the numbers for Daredevil had dropped like another 50%. I don't buy it. Number one, it comes from a not completely unreliable source, but not a very reliable source. Not always unreliable, but not always reliable either. There's that. But number two is this. Just from me, an average guy on social media, when Luke Cage season 2 came out, I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. When Iron Fist season 2 came out, I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. And the fact that Luke Cage season 1 ended so badly, not surprised that it took a big ratings dip in its second turn. The fact that Iron Fist season 1 was so universally hated, not surprised season 2 took a big dip. But when Daredevil season 3 came out, that's all I saw on my social media. Now, granted, that's anecdotal evidence, but that's all I saw people talking about was Daredevil, 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 Daredevil. I don't buy this. I don't buy it. I do not buy this story that Daredevil took a 57% drop. Don't buy it at all. Number one, it's coming from not a really reliable source. Number two, I'm sorry, but my own experience says otherwise. Yeah, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, I didn't see any chatter about it. Daredevil, I've seen nothing but talk about it. So I don't buy it. Yes, I do believe we are going to have a Daredevil season 4. I do not believe that was the last season whatsoever. Chris Miner writes, I thought Dex stole the show for me. He was tragic, especially with the Julie story. Julie, that's right. I called her Jill. Julie, you're right. But he was very menacing. Definitely a good threat to Matt. And again, I mean, I've been talking about that ad nauseum here, Chris. It was such a well-constructed antagonist. Tragic. You felt sympathy for him. You even found yourself cheering for him a little bit. At the end, he just gave in to his darker demons. There was a tragedy that went along with everything else, and that's all part of what made him so great to watch. Great, wonderfully played by Wilson. Wonderfully played by that dude. And just top-notch character. And again, really just added to the whole story. Added to it beautifully. All right, James Welsh writes, the viewership dropped in half from season 2. Well, I just referenced that. I don't buy that. I do not buy that at all. Not even in the slightest bit do I believe that. James Welsh writes, I do like the Netflix shows, but I think they're in trouble if their best show keeps dropping viewers. Do you think Punisher will drop viewers? Again, I don't believe that story. I do believe about the Iron Fist and Luke Cage, that made sense. You could see it on social media. Nobody's talking about it. I do not buy it for Daredevil. I've just seen too many people talking about it. Too many people have seen it. All the buzz about it. It was one of its strongest shows. Yeah, so I don't buy it. So I don't really even think it's something worth discussing, James, to be honest. I don't think you need to worry about it. I don't think I need to worry about it. Let's see. Daryl Best Wadley writes, I wish Punisher would have made a cameo. The convo he and Matt had in season 2 about redemption versus killing is what Matt faced this season. It's true. It is. But I don't think you need to shrink the world. I don't think everybody needs to step in and make a cameo. I understand why they did it with Iron Fist making his cameo in Luke Cage season 2, because they needed to try to rehabilitate the image of Iron Fist. They need to say, see guys, we can make Iron Fist better. See, Iron Fist isn't as annoying now. So I understood the purpose. You don't need to do that with Punisher. Everybody loves Punisher. You don't need to worry about him. And when you see where Punisher ended in season 1, it really wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to cameo in this season. It would have been forced in. It wouldn't have been a natural progression of the narrative. It just would have been shoehorned and forced. And that's never a good thing. So, hey, don't get me wrong. If John Bernthal had popped up on screen, I probably would have had a yee kind of moment just like everybody else. I totally would have. But no, I'm glad they didn't, though. Ultimately, I'm glad they didn't. Because it would have been forced and unnecessary. So I'm glad they kind of stuck with it in a very natural kind of flow. Stephen, where do we go? Here we go. Stephen Foley writes, Daredevil season 3 was stupid good. It certainly was. Favorite season so far. Not perfect, but a great amalgamation of 3 classic Daredevil runs, Born Again, Guardian Devil, and Love and War. And that's what I was kind of referencing a little bit earlier, Stephen, was that, yes, you can absolutely see the elements and the influences of Born Again in it and stuff like that, but Guardian Devil, Love and War, there's actually even 1 or 2 more. You could see that they really drew, for this season of Daredevil, they drew on a lot of the classic stories. And I think that just added to the overall strength. And you're absolutely right, Steven. Stupid good. It's stupid good. Man, I don't know. If it wasn't for that episode 10 stumble, let's call it that. If it wasn't for that episode 10 stumble, man, I'm trying to think about how giddy I would be about because I already love this. I think this season's spectacular. And that is with the stumble of episode 10, I should say. So who knows how great I would have thought it was. But Yeah, man, it was beautifully told, well laid out, excellent execution, beautiful use of all the different characters, giving us good depth in the storytelling, not sacrificing the narrative for the sake of action, but also giving us great advances in the action as well. I mean, it's just bravo to everybody involved with that show. They did such a great job with that. Steven follows that up with, one of the many standout episodes is episode 5, The Perfect Game, directed by Julian Holmes. Artistically, one of my favorite episodes of any of the Netflix Marvel shows. I wish you had told me something. I wish you would have said, that's the episode with, because I can't think off the top of my head what was in episode 5, to be honest with you. So I wish you had said, one of my favorite episodes is episode 5, the one where this happens and this happens. I wish you had said that. So all I can do is say, yeah, but I don't know which episode we're talking about, unfortunately. Sorry about that, Stephen. Let's see. Patrick Conway writes, better bullseye fight, church or bulletin? Ooh. I'm going to go church. They seem to add a little bit more. I use the word a lot, but it's very applicable here. The visceral nature. There was a little bit more of a visceral nature to the fight in the church because now it's a little bit personal, right? They came and they confronted each other at the newspaper. And it was a life or death fight, yes. But now they both kicked each other's asses. They're all this kind of stuff. And now they're specifically after this guy and he's after that guy. And there's a little bit more of a personal nature to it and got just a little bit more visceral. It added also the additional elements of you've got innocent bystanders in there. You've got Karen in the mix. They did I'm going to go with the church. It's close, but I'm going to go with the church one. Static Space Sean writes, the city rejected you. It beat you. I beat you. Goosebumps. Best scene in the series. See, I don't know. I love that scene. It's great for many, many reasons. I don't even know it's my best scene. I don't even know if it's the best scene in the season, let alone the series. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Doesn't that tell you something about how good this season was? When you can take a scene like that and say, I don't even know if that was the best scene in the season. That's how good this season was. That's how good so many of the scenes in this season was. That you have this magnificent scene. You go, yeah, it's magnificent, but I don't even know if that's the best one in the season. I don't even know if it's in the top 3. That's how good this season was. It's kind of crazy, but it is absolutely a spectacular shot. Spectacular shot. Ben Rayner writes, John, I wish you would say you're a defender of the defenders. Yes, I am. It's true. I am a defender of the defenders. I know there's a bunch of people who didn't like the defenders. I did like it. I thought not as good as Daredevil season 1, season 2, not as good as Punisher season 1. But I would say before Daredevil season 3, I would say Defender season 1 was the 4th best season in the Marvel Netflix universe. Only after Daredevil 1 and 2 and Punisher 1. I think it was better than Jessica Jones 1 or 2. I think it was better than Iron Fist. I think it was better than Luke Cage 1 and 2, all that kind of stuff. But now I would say it's probably the 5th best. But I am a defender of the defenders. It could have been better. It's not great, but I liked it. I had fun with it. Daryl Best Wadley writes, where are we at here? I loved when Karen told Fisk she killed Wesley. It was like, that's one of those scenes, Daryl. Like when we're talking about that incredible scene when Fisk is all bloodied up and Daredevil just beat him and it's like, the city rejected you, I beat you, blah, blah. But I can't just crown that scene the best of the season when you've got others, including that scene in that same room between Karen and Fisk. And Karen tells him she killed Wesley, who is a character I loved, by the way. I was bummed out when she killed Wesley in season 1 because I loved that. I thought he was great. But it was her shining moment in the series. I love that scene. That scene might be better than that Fisk Daredevil scene at the end. Might be. I'm not saying it definitely is, but it might be. And even that might not be the best one of the scenes. There are other scenes as well, but man, that scene is so freaking good. Alex Pitt writes, that 11-minute prison scene was outstanding, and overall the season was incredible. Fingers crossed that season 4 happens soon. What they can't do is wait another 2 years. You can't wait 2 years in between seasons. Like that was just, that's too much. You lose too much momentum. And I understand they did Daredevil, but Daredevil was very disruptive to the thing. And I think that's one of the big reasons why they said they've got no plans to do another Defenders. Did I say Daredevil? I meant Defenders. I think that's another reason why they said they're not going to do another Defenders, is because it was just too disruptive to everything. And we had to wait 2 years for another season of Daredevil. That's too long. They're going to do season 4, and I think they will. But if they're going to do season 4, it's got to be next year. Enough of this BS waiting 2 years for another season. That was ridiculous. Sharon Aurora writes, I'll be so mad if we don't get a season 4. I'll be disappointed. I won't be mad, but I'd be disappointed. But look, if they don't do a season 4, look, they've already given us so much. Daredevil season 1, season 2, and season 3 they've given us. And they've all been magnificent. They've all been magnificent. And if they don't give us a 4, we got no right to be mad. We can be disappointed, but they've already given us 1, 2, and 3, and they've all been incredibly entertaining and spectacular and exciting and just good, solid entertainment. And I think if they pull the plug, which I do not think they're going to do, I think we will get a 4, but if they do pull the plug, we got no right to be mad. All we can do is tip our cap and say thank you. Thank you for seasons 1, 2, and 3. We're disappointed they're not getting season 4. Tip of the cap, though. Thank you, good folks over at the Marvel Netflix partnership that made this show possible and giving us 3 amazing seasons. Gosh, it's hard to put into words what an accomplishment these 3 seasons have been. They've just done such a great job. Connor Diaz writes, at first I was iffy on him, but I loved Nadim, the highway convey with Daredevil, the home invasion fight, Dex's house investigation, and the fight scene. Oh my God. I ended up really liking the Ray character. They started off by giving us a character. Like the very first thing we see about this Ray guy, the very first thing they tell us is that he's got money problems because he paid, they used the term sister and sister-in-law interchangeably throughout the season. So I think it was a sister-in-law, but he spent all of his money so his sister or sister-in-law could have health care. And he basically bankrupted. They told us that. We knew that about the heart and the character of this guy, Ray Nadim, right off the bat. And they were able to build on that and build around it so wonderfully. And I'm with you. Look, everybody's going to talk about how great Daredevil is this season, how great Dex is this season, how great Fisk is this season. Yes. But the Ray Nadim character is one of the central figures that made this season so good. He was a rich character. He was deep. He was flawed. He had a moral center. Yet, like any human being, he had his humanity that pulled him because of different desires and needs and dangers. It was great. He was a pivotal character in the season. And I'm glad you brought him up because I think he's going to be one that gets overlooked a lot when we talk about how great season 3 was. So I'm glad you brought him up, Connor. Okay. Let's move on here. Geo writes, truly a masterpiece of commingling season 1, season 2 Defenders. I'm not really sure what it is you're trying to say. Call Ming Minat Teague, season 1, season 2 Defenders. I have no idea what you're trying to say, Gio. Sorry about that, man. Carlo Marasigan, I hope I'm saying that right, Carlo, writes, best fight scene, season 3 prison fight scene, or Punisher's prison fight scene from season 2. Ooh, I'll give the nod to Daredevil season 3. I'll give the nod to the Daredevil season 3 one. It just seemed to be a little bit better choreographed. But again, I just think they've been building off the success of all the previous stuff they were doing. It's a close one, though, dude. It's a close one. That's a really good question. I'm going to go with the season 3 prison fight scene. Ben Rayner writes, episode 10 was like episode 7 of season 2 of Stranger Things. All right, think about episode 8. Are you talking about the one with... what's the little girl's name? Why am I forgetting the little girl's name in Stranger Things? I can't remember her name. But the one where she goes off on her own, finds her other, like her sister. And all. I actually didn't mind that. To me, that worked. because that was a part of her character development. It wasn't some flashback thing. I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't. But if you mean it in terms of it was kind of the disappointment episode, then yes, for me, episode 10 was definitely the disappointment episode. It finished strong. The episode finished strong because we came back to the present and they finished strong, and that's important and that's great. But only after wasting over a half hour of our time with a completely pointless backflash story that didn't contribute to the ongoing narrative whatsoever. Rob Smith Krause writes, I beg to see Matt don the black and yellow suit. Well, I'll be honest with you. I was really, really happy because I remember before Daredevil season 3 came out, just getting off on the whole suit thing. A lot of people saying, because we saw him in the trailers just in the season 1 black suit, right? And everyone's like, oh, we better see him back in the Daredevil red. We better see him back. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, that black outfit, to me, is more consistent with the character. And I understand the comics and everything. Remember, this isn't the comics. This is the TV show. And to me, that is more just consistent to his nature and his personality. I like the fact that we saw him in that outfit, getting kind of back to his roots, and I really dug it. Let's see. Alexander Wilson writes, Episode 10 was very similar to Stranger Things Episode 7, in which it felt like the show stopped to a grinding halt. I hope it's not a Netflix thing. I doubt it's a Netflix thing. Netflix has done many seasons of many different shows, and that's not a consistent thing. But maybe I said it was Episode 8, but maybe you guys are right. Maybe it was Episode 7. But at any rate, yeah, a lot of people didn't like that episode in Stranger Things Season 2. I feel like I'm the only guy who actually kind of liked it, and I thought it did give us some character development with whatever her name is. I keep 7, 9, 12, 65, whatever her name is. I felt like it advanced character development, but I know a lot of my friends did not like that. Like that episode at all. So I'm in the minority there. So I totally see what you're saying, Alexander, and I don't think you're wrong. Mitcher Biller writes, I love how they did Dex's backstory with Fisk there for the entire thing, completely silent, but acting the hell out of it. It was so well done. Because first of all, they made it very clear what was happening. We knew Wilson was reading the reports, listening to the tapes and reading the reports, and kind of creating a mental construct of it and observing it, which is all part of the intellect of Wilson Fisk. The way they communicated that, all in about 5 to 10 minutes, by the way. They didn't need 35 minutes of an episode to do it. They did it pretty rapidly, but they did it so effectively, so powerfully. And you're right, just having Fisk there silently as the observer. So strong. So strong. I'm with you 100% on that, Mitchell. It was such a powerful moment for the season. It gave us so much insight, not just into Dex and his backstory, but it told us a lot about Wilson Fisk too, and about how he approaches things and his mentality. It was just a great shot, great scene. All right, Jordan Marshall writes, Hey, John, how are you? I'm doing well, Jordan. Thank you so much. If Daredevil Season 4 continues on Netflix, and I believe it will, and because of the ending, will Bullseye be the next main villain again for Season 4 and flesh him out further? I don't think so. I think they put that in there. It was a great little tag at the end, but I don't think it necessarily means that that's what they have in store for Season 4. I think they need to move on to something different. And have him in the bullpen, no pun intended. Have Bullseye in the bullpen waiting to come back in a later season. I wouldn't bring him back, again, for the same reason we talked about Fisk. We just did an entire season with Bullseye. We just did a season with him. Do we need to go back to it again? I don't know. I think at some point you can. And obviously that last little post-credit scene, if you will, with Season 3 kind of gives us a foreshadowing that, hey, we may not be done with this character yet. They put him back up on the platter and said, look, he's back on the menu. We can go back to him again later with a little bit of a twist now. But I don't think it necessarily means they have to come right back to him in Season 4. You know what I'm saying? I think you can put him on the shelf now, and he's just there, ready to be used for anything later on. And by the way, it doesn't even have to be Daredevil. It can be a Punisher. It can be something. It can be a Jessica Jones. It could be whatever. But yeah, I think we're going to see him again. But I just don't think we necessarily have to see him again in Season 4. I say give it a little bit of a breath. take a little bit of a breather from both Kingpin and Dex. Let's come back to them later. Let's get something new in there for season 4 just so it doesn't get stale. You know what I'm saying? All right. Mitchell follows it up with, I know you're against Netflix heroes in the MCU, but what about the new Falcon or Bucky shows? Like if Fisk or Bullseye suddenly shows up as a threat, no, keep them separate. Look, these new series, limited series on the Disney streaming service, I believe are going to be as separate from the Netflix shows as the MCU is completely. Because those Disney streaming shows are obviously directly connected to the MCU because they're bringing in those MCU characters to build them around. So I think, this is just my guess, nobody's told me this, I'm just guessing. My guess is that they are going to keep those Disney streaming shows as separate from the Netflix shows as they keep the Netflix shows from the MCU movies. I think they're going to keep them just as separate, and no, I don't want to see them crossing over. I don't. I think you're creatively tying the hands of what the Netflix shows can do when you tie them into some other cinematic universe. Keep them separate. I think that's their plan. That's what I think they're going to do, and I think it's the right thing to do. So no, I don't want to see them crossing over. MDB 3000 writes, is Melvin the suit maker dead? I don't think so. I think he got arrested. Didn't he? Yeah, I just think he got away. I'm sorry, not he got away, but when Daredevil got away, I think he just ended up in prison. I don't think we're done with Melvin. I like that character, by the way. I do. Good question. I'm glad you brought that up, but I don't think he's dead. I might not be remembering it properly, but I think when the FBI raid happened, I think ultimately he just gets caught, right? Because he's beaten that one FBI agent almost to death, and there's all the red laser scope marks on him. He's like, and puts up his hands on it. I'm caught, right? But yeah, I'm pretty sure when Daredevil season 3 ends, he's alive. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Patrick Conway writes, agree with you about episode 10, but the last 20 minutes were great. Yeah, the episode ended strong. The episode did end strong, and I'll give it that, and I'm super grateful that it did. But, man, it was a mistake. It's the only mistake they made this season. How they handled episode 10. It was the only misstep they had this season. Otherwise than that, it was just brilliant. Brilliantly done. Robert Johnson writes, will Netflix and Disney streaming shows cross over? We just kind of reference it. I really don't think so. I don't think so at all. Because if you do, because the Disney streaming shows are MCU. They're proper MCU. So if you cross the Netflix shows over with those, then now you're saying they are proper in the MCU. And we all know that they're not. So I don't think they're going to, no. They might. I mean, I don't have any insider information. I'm just guessing, but my guess is no, and I think that's the right decision. Monsley Everyday writes, still think Daredevil season 2 is the best season ever. It's hard to argue against that. Daredevil season 2 was magnificent. And like I said, if it wasn't for episode 10, I think I would say that season 3 was better than season 2. But because of episode 10, I'm not quite ready to say that. So I might be with you, Moonslide. I might be completely with you on that season 2 might still be the best season. I have to let it, marinate a little bit longer, if you will, before I really come to a solid personal decision. But that's what I kind of think. All right. MVC or MCV Multicomiverse writes, season 4, enter Moon Knight and Echo. I don't see how Moon Knight fits into a Daredevil show. So I'm going to say no. Look, everybody, including my good friend Robert Meyer Burnett, which by the way, because a lot of you guys asked for it, I did put this new episode of The Weekly Hero up on my YouTube channel. So it is there. You can go check it out. Make sure you give it a watch. Robert and I had a great time doing it. It's in the new studio. We had a blast. I think you'll like it. But him and many people have been really asking for Moon Knight. I just don't see how Moon Knight fits in with the Daredevil. I'm not saying we can't ever see Moon Knight. I'm just saying I don't think that's the show you bring him in on. So that's just my opinion. Sam Fisher writes, there was an interview with Wool I saw where they talked about how Daredevil and Bullseye have complete different motives when fighting. Great. I don't know what your question is, Sam, or what your point is. You need to give us a little bit of insight. So you said, hey, there's this conversation where they talked about this. Great. What did they say? Sorry, Sam. I don't know what it is you're saying, so I can't follow up on it. 65 Drums writes, season 3 had some of the best villains I've seen on TV in quite a while. I never knew What they would do next, so good. Absolutely 6-5 drama. That's the thing about, first of all, the instability of Dex always left you wondering what he was going to do next. And the pure genius of Wilson Fisk, because he was always 5 steps ahead of everybody else. Always left you wondering what was going to happen next. I mean, it is, and the motivations and the two layers, the fact that they both, one wanted to be good, one already saw himself as good. They just added so many layers to these characters. That's what makes for really rich villains. And that's what made this season click so well. So well. I think you're absolutely right about that, 10 drums. They crush it again with Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. And then they killed it with this new character, Dex. A character that very easily could have been mishandled and misused. But they used him perfectly. They gave him great backstory. They gave him great motivations. They gave him great turmoil and great personal conflict. And it all equaled out to a great character. And great characters make great villains. And that's what they did. And I completely agree with you on that. Let's see. Okay. Sam Fisher writes, Daredevil is a melee fighter and Bullseye. Oh, okay, so now you're getting into what you were talking about earlier. Perfect. Daredevil is a melee fighter. Bullseye is a ranged weapon user. Daredevil wants to get in close as possible, and Bullseye wants to get as far away as possible. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if that is what they mentioned in the interview, then I feel very good about my own observations that that's what it felt like. It felt like, yeah, Daredevil needed to get in close. And when he was in close, watch it again. Yes, Dex got in his shots. He did. He got in some good heavy shots on Daredevil when they were fighting in close. But you always could tell that when they were fighting in close, even though Dex was landing shots, Daredevil had the upper hand the whole time. Daredevil was landing 2 shots for every 1 shot that Dex would land. And he was landing the heavier shots. But as soon as Dex was able to use MMA terminology, as soon as Dex was able to create separation, right, he would just start picking Matt apart with ranged weapons, right? By the way, big UFC fight tonight. Make sure you watch it. See, everybody's talking about the heavyweight title fight, right? Between DC and Lewis. And that's going to be fun, although it's going to be over in the first round. DC's going to knock him out in the first round. But the fight I'm looking forward to is the welterweight fight, right? The Jacare fight, Weidman. That's the fight I'm looking forward to tonight. But anyway, that's a separate thing. But yeah, absolutely right. When it was in close, it was Daredevil's advantage. As soon as Dex was able to create separation, boom, he started picking him apart. And that was just the pattern of their fights moving on. And that's why Dex gets ended by Kingpin getting close. And you don't want Kingpin getting in close range. You don't want Kingpin to get in close range. Because as soon as Kingpin gets in close range of you, you're done. Picks him up, breaks his back. Oh, just beautifully done. Tinus Flado writes, I haven't watched any Daredevil yet. Don't mind spoilers. We see Daredevil on Netflix next season or reboot on Disney streaming. Nah, I think you're going to see him on. I think Netflix is going to keep Daredevil around. I think you're going to see season 4, and I think it's going to be in 2019. I don't think no more of this waiting 2 years BS kind of stuff. So I do think we're going to see him there again. Stephen Foley writes, episode 5, The Perfect Game, the Dex backstory in black and white. Oh, that one. Okay, so the one we were talking about where Fisk was watching and observing it. Great episode. Great episode. And the very fact that he killed his coach, who was kind to him, and that he liked, by doing the ricochet shot of the baseball, just gave you so much foreshadowing. Say, oh my God, this kid's born with that, right? You're absolutely right, Stephen. It was brilliant. It was a wonderful episode. I could have watched that over and over and over again, but I needed to move on to episode 6. Pool of Dead writes, the twist with Ray's boss gave me chills. Oh gosh, didn't it though? That was when they realized Kingpin literally is a demon that is always 2 steps ahead and can't be stopped. Dude, there were so many moments like that where you just realize Kingpin is so far ahead of everybody, including, how about that scene? I think it was in episode 11 when they've got Ray at the courthouse. He just gave testimony to the grand jury. And then Matt can hear in there the guy who's paid off by Fisk, naming off all the jurors' home addresses. Oh my God, that scene was so strong. That scene was so strong. So well done. There's so, but you're right. That scene you're mentioning with the double cross, that there was just so many moments in this thing where you're just realizing, oh my God, Fisk. To me, the first one was when Matt is in prison pretending to be Foggy, and all of a sudden Fisk comes on the PA and you're like, or comes on the phone. It's like, wait a minute, time out. How's he doing that? How's Fisk doing this? He's supposed to be under house arrest. He's supposed to be being monitored 24/7. That was the first inclination, but all throughout the season they did that. Fisk is just smarter than everybody. He's always 2 or 3 steps ahead, and that scene you mentioned definitely plays towards that as well. Tinnis Flato writes, also, thanks for giving us a safe haven. Great group here. Just hang out / talk movies. Been a sucky month. Death and family. Oh, that's horrible to hear, man. Thanks to you and the group. Here it's been bearable. Well, I'm so glad that the film fan community, including our little corner of the film fan community, Tinnis Flato, can be here for you. You know, me and Ann, we had a death in the family not so long ago. And it's a horrible thing, but it's one of the great things about the film fan community is we can come together as an oasis. It's not an escape. Some people call movies and talking about movies an escape. I call it an oasis. It just gives us a moment to take a breather, enjoy ourselves, have some fun, and then go back and face, the real world challenges we have with a different perspective, a refreshed mind, a better outlook, and that always makes life better when you can do that. And I'm always grateful. I'm always grateful that we always have this film fan community here that we can do that together. And I'm really glad that it's not just me that can enjoy that, but also you and other people who are facing it. And we all face our challenges in life, man. We face different challenges at different times. And you're obviously facing some right now. And I'm glad the film fan community can be here for you for that. Tinnis Flato. So thanks so much for mentioning that. And I'm hoping we can help make your day a little bit brighter. All right. Last few questions here, guys. And we got to call it a day. Let's see. Jason Twinner writes, I felt sorry for Fisk by the end. Great writing. And look, we talked about that with Dex, but it's also true about Wilson. I mean, although he is evil to the core, he really sees himself as the hero. And like most of us, all he wants is what a lot of us want. He wants love, and more than anything else, he just wants love. And he particularly wants to be with the one person he loves more than anything else in life. Vanessa. So you're right, though. There are moments that you feel, and all the crap went down on his wedding day. It's his own fault. But yeah, there's that little tinge of things that makes us feel sorry for him a bit. All Productions writes, by MCU referencing Daredevil, I mean a nod, no crossover. Even then, I don't really see it. We've never seen the MCU reference any of the television stuff, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They never reference the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show whatsoever. So even then, I would just prefer them to keep it nice and separate. Nice and cleanly separate. That's the way I would like it at any rate. I know many of you guys would disagree, though, and that's totally cool. Grim Jow writes, how do you feel about Wilson Fisk being in Matt's head, constantly antagonizing him? I loved it. I think it was great, too, because it was more about Matt than it was about Kingpin. Because obviously Kingpin does not have telepathic mutant abilities. That was all Matt's head. That was telling us more about the borderline madness that Matt was facing with all the personal loss and the crisis and the identity crisis that he was facing. The fact that he was constantly had, Fisk in his head, then his dad in his head and all that kind of stuff. I was also kind of half expecting Elektra to pop up in his head too. But they didn't, and that's fine. But I agree with you, Grimjow. I thought that was a great addition to the show because it gave us an even deeper look into who Matt was, more than Kingpin. And I thought that was wonderful. MCV Multiverse writes, or Comic Verse writes, loved episode 10, gave me time to cook dinner and keep... Well, then, yes. I mean, if you're binging and you're like, man, I need time to step away from the TV and not really miss anything, episode 10 gave you a good solid 35 minutes that you could go away, do something else, and you didn't really miss anything. So, way to look on the bright side, MCV. Way to look on the bright side. I like the way you approach that. All right, Jaron Morris writes, love how they touch on season 1 of Daredevil where they say, we don't say his name, we address him as Kingpin. Yeah, that was a nice little wink and a little nod. You're right. And you know what, Jaron? If you really look throughout this season, there are a few of those moments. And you know what? Another nice little moment like that was at the very, very end, because there was no reference to anything else going on in this Netflix universe until the very end. Foggy, Karen and Matt are sitting around the table. Foggy holds up the Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige thing. And they say, you're a hell of an investigator. And Matt says, you're a lot more stable than Jessica Jones. That was the only Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or Danny. No reference to any of them ever throughout the entire season until the very, very end, that little reference. And I agree with you, Jaron. That nice little reference to the whole thing about Kingpin in there, that was really good too. All right, Joseph A. Reinhard writes, whatever happened to the guy that made his suit? Well, yeah, he got caught by the FBI. I assume he just got caught by the FBI and put in prison. So, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but to me, I thought that was clear. He got caught by the FBI and put back in prison. I thought that was clear. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think happened to him at any rate, Joseph. I'll have to go back and check it out again. MDB 3000 writes, wasn't Melvin in the freezer? I don't remember. I have to go. If you guys in the chat board, if you guys know the answer to that, go ahead. Red Cap writes, love the show. I love the show too, man. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Let's see. Okay, and guys, I'm going to ask no more. Please don't fire in any more questions. We're going to wrap up these last 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, and we're going to be done for the day. Random Black Gamer, I like that name. Random Black Gamer writes, Dex was such a complex antagonist. He really was. That's a great word for it, complex. He was very complex, no doubt about it. Dex was such a complex antagonist, and I loved how grounded his story was. Not sure if it's just me, but I felt like the show was alluding to him being on the spectrum, hence his heightened abilities. I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know that it ever suggested there was anything meta about him, you know what I'm saying? But look, you really can't say enough about that character. And the Daredevil writers and the showrunners there have always done such a good job of making sure that their villains are first and foremost characters. A lot of shows and movies just make the villain as the villain. I feel like with the Daredevil show, they always make first, before they make him the villain, they make the character. And then this character will play the role of the villain, but we start with the character. They did that for Fisk, and they clearly did that for Dex. And you're right, man. It was a beautifully intricate, well done, complex. He's trying to do good. He's fallen back to his darker demons and tries to come back and do good again, falling back to his darker demons. I mean, it was a roller coaster ride just trying to follow his story, right? And that's what made him so compelling. And made it so I just couldn't stop watching when he was on screen. I mean, it was beautifully done. Mitchell Biller writes, the reveal of Fisk's hidden base was great. Oh, I agree. Because again, like I told you, that scene when Matt's in the prison, gets the phone call and it's Fisk, that threw me for a loop, man. Absolutely threw me for a loop. I had no idea what the hell was going on. And then the reveal of it was perfect. Just beautifully done. Daryl Best Wadley writes, Kingpin's a mastermind. He killed Ray's boss and kids. Actually, well, he killed his boss's one kid. We know that. But I believe she lives. Because remember at the end, they're saying she flipped and also started giving evidence and giving testimony. So I believe she lives. I think at the end there, Dex whips something at her and knocks her out, but I don't think he killed her, because then it was later near the very, very end of the final episode, they mentioned she flipped. So I believe she lives. But yeah, that whole thing when she's describing, when she said, my heart broke for her when she said, I used to have 2 kids. It's like, you needed to pause the TV when she said that, because that is a moment that is so powerful and so strong, and yet it goes by so quickly. I think a lot of people missed the gravity of that scene. When she just goes, I had 2 kids. You wrap your head around what that all means, what that all entails, right? And what that says, again, more about Kingpin himself. I mean, it was staggering, absolutely staggering. Final question of the day. Last comment comes to us from Patrick, who writes, you know, technically Matt didn't beat Fisk, Ray did. Well, no, they got into a fight and Daredevil won. It ends with Fisk on his knees getting his face beaten in. And at that point, I mean, he could have just killed him, but instead he beat him to a bloody pulp. And at that point too, I mean, but that's the beautiful thing about it is that, remember I said earlier that Foggy and Karen were not your stereotypical friends of the hero, where normally the friends of the hero, their role in a show or a movie is to play the function of the witness. They bear witness to all the heroism of our hero. Rather, both Paige and Nilsson, they both, were proactive protagonists in this show, making their own narratives happen, leading towards the demise of Kingpin. So even if Daredevil lost that fight, Kingpin's busted. Even if Karen and Foggy don't get out that video, Daredevil's got him beat. They came at him from multiple angles and they used the characters in very practical ways that were material to the show, right? And that's one of the things I loved about the season completely. But I think you can say that technically Daredevil did beat him, but you can also say that Foggy and Karen beat him, and that Ray beat him, and that it becomes this big collective effort of the universe moving against this vile evil. So, some deep philosophy we could go into there. All right, guys, that will do it for this little spoiler review discussion of the greatness that was Daredevil Season 3. I love this season, guys. We needed this so badly. Thanks a lot for joining in the discussion, guys. What are some thoughts? What are some great moments that we've never mentioned here on the show? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know what you think. This is being recorded on Saturday. Tomorrow is Sunday, and we will have a standard open mic show on Sunday tomorrow afternoon. Make sure you come back and join us for that. And then, of course, the John Campea Show. The John Campea Show will be back on Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope you guys will join me then. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you've just wandering by and you just happen to be a visitor here on the channel, click that subscribe button, become one of our part of our community here. It would be great to have you. That'll do it for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.